Yes, time is short. Time is short. Technology is vital. We have only 26 days to save the greatest city on earth from the man who nominated Jeremy Corbyn to be the leader of the Labour Party. We have 26 days to save London, not just from the left, but from the extreme left, my friends. And I'm very grateful because I see so many people here today who helped me not just in 2012, but in 2008 as well. And I want to take this last chance as mayor to thank you for everything that you did. Thank you very much for helping us in those campaigns, but also to remind you of the forces we defeated back then, the kind of people who are slavering to get their hands back on the wheel at City Hall, and to remind you of the disaster that almost overwhelmed London when Labour was last in charge. Do you remember the cover of Time magazine in early 2008, one called London Falling? And it had a picture of the skyscrapers of the city sinking beneath the waves, like the funnels of some doomed ocean liner. Who was at the bridge? Captain Ken Livingstone, with his grog store clinking with bottles of taxpayer-funded French vintages. And who was perched on his shoulder, chattering nonsense in his ear? Lee Jasper, a man whose idea of social justice is to live in a council house while taking a state salary of £128,000. And it is no wonder, a injustice that we are now trying to rectify. It is no wonder that the good ship London was foundering on their watch. They were fire-hosing tens, if not hundreds of millions of pounds on dodgy projects through the London Development Agency. They were failing to get a grip on the problems of gang crime and knife crime. The whole construction and housing industry had basically frozen because of the crunch, and they had put up council tax. Never forget this, my friends. They had put up council tax to pay for their waste and their profligacy by 153%. And there they all are again, waiting for Sadiq Khan to put the band back together again. A bunch of high-taxing, high-spending, garden-grabbing, Chateau Neuf du Pape swilling, bendy bus fetishists. And my question to you is, do you want these people? Do you want these people back in control of the greatest city on earth? No, we don't, because we've got so much, frankly, to be proud of in London today. It is the number one tourist city on earth, 18.8 million international visitors. We've knocked Paris, we knocked New York off the number one spots. I'm delighted to say that on current trends, there are going to be more people visiting the British Museum every year than visit the whole of Belgium. And I say that without any disrespect. I say that without any disrespect to Brussels, which is, of course, a city I love. They're not necessarily all the institutions they're in. It is a city, of course, with 400,000 French men and women, which will remain the case, and indeed all our welcome international, talented international workers, I'm sure will remain here after June the 24th, or Independence Day, as I'm sure it will be known. A city that, slip these ones in quietly here. A city that makes up now 25% of UK GDP, and which, according to City AM just last week, or just this week, was named yet again as the number one city in the world for investment and to do business in. And why is it so successful at the moment? What's the formula? Why have we got all this incredible activity happening, not just in commerce and in finance and in the universities, but also in the arts, culture, the media, all those incredible sectors? Why here? Why now? And I think it is a confluence of factors, all of them crucial in their own way. Of course, crime is very important. We've got crime down a lot under the Conservatives, down about 19% in this city, burglary down 36%, murder roughly speaking cut in half, bus crime down 50%, bus crime, obviously crime committed on buses rather than crime committed by buses, which remains very, very rare indeed. And this reduction in crime is of huge social importance, because the victims of crime, my friends, are disproportionately the poorest and the neediest in our society. So in fighting crime, we are doing something for social justice. And the same point can be made about our investments in transport, because you need to move people swiftly and conveniently around this great city of ours. And I'm absolutely thrilled that on our watch, under this Conservative administration, we have progressed Crossrail so that it is on time, on budget, will be completed in the next 3 years. This great government has committed to Crossrail 2, a colossal project, far and away the biggest infrastructure project in the whole of Europe, which will be absolutely transformative for rail transport in this city, east to southwest. We are going ahead now with the first extension of the tube for 15 years. Once again, these crucial infrastructure projects done under Conservative administrations. We have 25% more people, I'm proud to say, on the tube every day than there were when I was elected. Some of you may feel they were in your carriage this morning, but we have also reduced delays by 50% over the last 8 years, and at the same time we have massively improved cycling. Cycling has doubled in the last period, and I'm delighted to say on buses we have a beautiful new bus, do we not? A wonderful machine. And I'm thrilled to say that it is made in Northern Ireland, driving jobs, driving growth in the United Kingdom, and replacing the bendy bus, which was, of course, made elsewhere, in Germany, as it happens. Wonderful to see a fantastic UK project. And that transport investment has enabled regeneration across the city. We're transforming parts of the city that have been neglected for 40 years. Battersea, Old Oak Common, the Olympic Park, Greenwich, and in all sorts of vital ways, we are helping to improve the quality of life. I think that's one of the things that makes London so attractive to live in. We've really concentrated, as Zach is going to concentrate, on all the environmental improvements that matter. 2,400 growing spaces we've created, where people are producing fruit and vegetables across London. The other day I was presented with the first ever bottle of London-grown champagne. Chateau Enfield. Absolutely true. The bottle. This is one of the ways London is now the volunteering capital of Europe. One of the things we do is we encourage people to plant trees and do this kind of thing. Chateau Enfield. I'm afraid that the bottle in question has been mysteriously stolen from my office, and I hope whoever nicked it is all right. We are taking particular care to green up the city. We've planted 100,000 trees, and contrary to some of the gloomy stuff you hear on the media, we have greatly improved air quality in this city. It's improved. You may not believe it, London air quality is improving the whole time. Nitrous oxide is down 27%, PM10s, PM2.5s down, nitrous oxide down 27% now, PM10 to PM2.5 down 20%. In fact, the air in London only recently, during an outbreak of bad air quality throughout the UK, the air in London was actually better than the air in Norfolk, my friends. And the day cannot be far off when kids are bussed in from Norfolk to inhale clean gulfs of London. And now we've done all these things. The biggest program of transport investment since the Victorian times. The biggest program of home building. The biggest regeneration that we've seen for the last century. We've done all these things with a sensible, cost-cutting, conservative approach. Taking the tough decisions to reform the estates of the police and the fire service, liberating surplus buildings for housing, taking on the unions when it came to the matter of the ticket offices, and taking advantage of new technology so as to deliver automated trains. Not a single new train for London, new tube train for London will have the old-fashioned driver's cabs. We are going for automatic trains on our system, and yes, this July you will have on London's Underground, the night tube service. And we have done it by being so prudent. We have done it by being so prudent with your money. We've done it by being so prudent with your money that we have been able simultaneously to cut our share of the council tax by 28%, my friends. That is Conservative government in London. And it's that Conservative approach that we've had in City Hall that has been so essential for building up the trust of central government. And that central government, Whitehall, has rewarded us with increasing commitments to support London infrastructure. When they see local government behaving sensibly, central government responds. And they've given us, as I say, commitments to Crossrail 2. They've given us the backing for our 13 new river crossings. Incredibly, I'm delighted to say, central government is also now committed to giving Londoners much more control over suburban rail, which will be a fantastic gain for this city. They've given us huge backing in the matter of our housing zones. I'm delighted to see Greg here in the front row, who's been absolutely instrumental in helping London to develop more homes. And when I think of the cooperation that I've had with George, with Greg, with David Cameron, with everybody over the last few years, I think what a disaster, the closeness of our relationship. I think what a disaster it would be if TfL's budgets had £2 billion taken out of them, as Sadiq Khan promises to do. And I really think there is only one man who can work with our Conservative government and get the funding and get the confidence that London needs, and that man is sitting here in the front row. That man is Zach Goldsmith. Now, my friends, Zach is one of the... Zach is not only, he's one of the most remarkable politicians of his generation. He's a man of principle. He's certainly right about Heathrow. He's an environmental campaigner. He's an environmental campaigner who works so hard, and Londoners should pay attention to this, because he works so hard for his constituents, and so successfully and diligently, that they have rewarded him with bigger and bigger majorities. He now has, I think, Zach, the biggest majority in the entire country, give or take. Or certainly... Zach tells me it's not quite true, with characteristic modesty, but Zach's majority in Richmond is almost as big as my majority in London, folks, and that's a measure of his. I think that's a measure of his willingness to serve his constituents, and I think Zach shares with me and with David Cameron and with our government at the moment this fundamental binding philosophy. We are all one nation Conservatives. We understand the vital symmetry of a modern 21st century economy. And that is, it's only by having fantastic public services that you can create the platform for a dynamic market economy. And it's only if you value and you liberate entrepreneurialism and free market capitalism that you can pay for great public services. Isn't that right? And it's by having that combination, that combined approach, that one nation approach, and by taking all those factors together, bringing crime down, investing in transport, investing in housing, that have helped to make the fundamentals of the London economy so strong. We lead now, we lead Europe, and we almost lead the world in a sector, tech, that barely existed when I came to City Hall 8 years ago. We now lead in fintech, biotech, edtech, medtech, green tech, nanotech, aztech. We have 500,000 people working in the tech sector now in London. Of the 40 tech businesses worth more than $1 billion, 17 of them are in this country, 13 of them in London. And of course, we lead in all those creative culture and media sectors as well. In a few years' time, we will produce not only more film than New York, and more film and TV than New York, but more film and TV than Los Angeles as well. And but that, by the way, is very largely thanks to conservative tax breaks for those industries. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen the recent James Bond film. Has anybody seen Spectre? You've seen Spectre. It's a wonderful film. And at the end of Spectre, which is a very, very important study in what happens to an unelected bureaucratic cabal that tries to subvert democracy, you may remember. You may remember at the end of the film, the final reel, James Bond shoots the baddie, who is the leader of this unelected bureaucracy, as I say, and he falls. Can you remember he falls? Now, where is he? Can you remember? Anybody remember where the baddie is? The top baddie is when Bond shoots. That's right. Absolutely right. The location for that final, that climactic scene is, of course, City Hall. And the world's leading baddie tumbles roughly from where my office is all the way through the void made by the 8th-floor spiral staircase constructed by Norman Foster, thereby becoming the first person in history to make any practical use of that architectural feature. And he lands slap bang. He lands slap bang in front of the place where I'm interrogated every month by the London Assembly in a tribute, I think, by the forces of unelected bureaucracy to democracy in this city and in this country. And what an amazing thing! What an amazing thing! I think to have turned City Hall, this humdrum piece of municipal architecture, and made it the set of one of the biggest grossing movies of all time. I think $1 billion it has already made, much of it, of course, coming in the way of employment to this city. And it's that creativity, that dynamism, that has led to what we have seen over the last few years under this Conservative administration, a huge growth in employment, NEETs at a 25-year low, employment at record highs, and it's the creation of those jobs, that economic activity in all these sectors, that is the single biggest driver of social change and the single most important bringer of social justice. And I'm very proud of a lot of the things that have happened under this administration on our watch in London. Above all, of the 400,000 people in London who've been lifted out of poverty in the last 8 years, when I was elected Mayor of London, we had 4 of the 6 poorest boroughs in the city. And of course, it is still true that we have pockets of immense deprivation, but there is now no London borough in the bottom 20. And where do you think property prices have been rising the fastest in the last year? Anybody know? It is, of course, last year it was Waltham Forest. This year it is, anybody know in London? Newham. Because London is the only Olympic city in the last 50 years to achieve a real physical legacy from the Olympic Games. And we come now, of course, to the final weeks of my time in City Hall, and it's a bit like a washing machine coming to its final surging, throbbing, panting bout of energy. And we are pushing on with a few things that I will just briefly tell you. We are pushing on with the Garden Bridge, and it will be done. It will be an absolutely fantastic place. We have just announced the completion. Just in the last few days, we've announced the completion of the 100,000th, 359th affordable homes, so knocking Labour's record out of the park. The cycle superhighways, the beloved and popular cycle superhighways, are almost there. Work continues on the superb Arts and Cultural Centre and the universities in the Olympic Park, known as Olympicopolis, by me, if by nobody else. And in the next few weeks, we will perfect perfection in the sense that Carsten Hollers, the artist Carsten Hollers, is teaming up with Anish Kapoor to adorn the ArcelorMittal orbit. You know what I mean by the ArcelorMittal orbit? Is going to adorn that with the longest covered slide in the world. And I fully intend to be amongst the very first to descend to go down the tubes in what may or may not turn out to be the perfect metaphor for the conclusion of my mayoralty. But all these projects, and there's many other things besides that we're doing in the last few weeks, but all these projects, and I hope you will agree with this in conclusion, my friends, all these projects are dwarfed in importance by the choice we face before us on May the 5th. Do we want? Well, the choices. I mean, I'll set it out for you. On the one hand, you've got a victory not just for Sadiq Khan, but for Jeremy Corbyn's Sadiq Khan. And don't forget that Jeremy Corbyn is a man whose idea of a defence policy to send Britain's nuclear submarines to sea without nuclear missiles aboard. So the whole country is literally firing blanks. A victory for Sadiq Khan. Oh, yeah. A victory for Sadiq Khan, who has shared platforms, to put it at its mildest, with some pretty dodgy people, with some pretty repellent views, a man who would avowedly bring back the unions to City Hall, put up your council taxes, and violate the gardens of Outer London with rabbit hutch high-rises. Now, do we want to go back to that regime? Do we want to put back that? Do we want to bring back Ken Livingstone and that cabal of cronies to City Hall? Do we want those kinds of people running London again? I don't. I don't. Or do we rather want to go forward with Zach Goldsmith and sensible, moderate, progressive, green, one nation, but tax-cutting and efficient Conservative administration to take this city forwards? That's what we need. That's what I want. And I hope very much you do as well. Let's back Zach, folks. Let's back Zach and crack on with supporting the greatest city on earth. And let's get out there. Let's get out there. Let's get out there and get Zach elected on May the 5th. But first, we're going to have a quick movie